Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Sales Enabled, where I'm going to be speaking with Andrea Abbate. Andrea Abbate is a global sales enablement leader, trainer, and public speaker with over 20 years of corporate experience across the US, EMEA, and APAC. Currently, Andrea is the Vice President of Revenue Enablement at Showpad, a leading sales enablement platform. Andrea is one of the Sales Enablement Collective's 2023 Wants to Watch list of top sales enablers globally, and is an in-demand keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, podcaster, and applied improv practitioner. In this episode, we discuss the quality of outreach, sharing our recent personal experiences with business development reps who are trying to sell us things, why we both think the quality of outreach is on the way down, and ultimately the top lessons everyone should know when it comes to trying to connect with someone. Outreach is a tough job for sure. Even harder when you do it badly. So if you know an SDR who would benefit from these tips, please do share this episode with them afterwards. But for now, let's head over to the conversation with Andrea Abbate. Andrea, hey, good morning. Great to have you on the show. I'm super excited about our conversation today. How's New Year's treating you? We're already kind of 20 days into 2023. Seems like only yesterday we were all enjoying ourselves and having fun.
And it feels like we're now at that threshold where even if you see someone for the first time in the calendar year 2023, it's sort of getting too late to say Happy New Year, but Happy New Year. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Do you have a rule? Do you have a rule on Happy New Year? I saw a post the other day on LinkedIn that says that today is the day. You can't, if you say it after this, you've officially broken one of the unwritten rules of Happy New Year's.
You know, I don't. And I'm just wondering, of all the things we want to set boundaries upon, why wishing someone a happy year is that thing. You know, why not wish someone a happy year in 2023? And in fact, the day we're recording this today is actually the first day of Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. So, you know, it's New Year somewhere.
Is it the water rabbit?
Yes, yeah, this is the
exactly. There we go.
Apparently the most prosperous or fortunate sign in this Chinese zodiac. So Happy New Year and a fortuitous year of the water rabbit to you, sir.
Amazing. This is a complete aside. We'll get into some of the important stuff in a minute, but one of the first things we did on New Year's is my wife read me my horoscope. I never read horoscopes, and I have complete beliefs about these things, or lack of beliefs about these things. As you know, if you've read any of Derren Brown's stuff on cold reading, I think it's hilarious. But actually, mine sounded really positive for the year. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe apparently good money is coming in at the end of the year, and like this is going to be my year of all things amazing. So
wow.
Maybe I have affinity with the water rabbit. We shall see.
Possibly. Either that or these horoscopes always say something great so that you don't like launch into the year wanting to commit ritual suicide. So I think it's like third week of January. Exactly. Everyone's at that point. But no, so far a good but busy start to the year. And what a delight to spend a chilly Friday having this awesome conversation with yourself.
It's going to be fun. I tell you, one of the things though, of coming back, and this is, the topic of what we're going to talk about today, is you have those couple of weeks off. And for me, actually, I turned right off. It was amazing. Finally got to spend some time with family, tried to avoid eating too much because I'm trying to be healthy with the diet. But then you come back, right, and your inbox is just slammed. It's like so busy. You almost think, I shouldn't have gone away. I didn't open the laptop, not once. Well, maybe one time. It's like a quick look. Oh, yep, something in there. Happy with that. Just to check that things are moving. But the inbox just gets so busy. And, some of them are important, but so many of them are, and we're going to talk about outreach today, right? Some of them are, SDRs and stuff. And yes, we've got sales targets to hit. And I know, salespeople have got to be doing stuff over December, even though it seems like everyone's on holiday. But, it's kind of one of those ones. I don't know about you, but I highlight everything, delete the one, or like unhighlight the ones that I know I need to read.
Yes.
And then hit delete. And that's the rule. And some people just say, actually, if it's in my inbox, I'm going to delete everything. I'm not that brave. But I know there's some people that put it on their signature and say, if it's that important, get back to me in January. But one of the things that I'm noticing, and, I'm seeing this in lots of conversations, is about quality of outreach. And, some of those outreach emails, I know you get them all as well. Are they getting worse? Like, what's happening? It just seems like they're copy and pasting. I know there's all these influencers saying, hey, use my templates. Like, what's going on and how are you finding it?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dan. And I'd say at least 50% of inbox noise are outreaches or people trying to sell stuff to me. And when I changed my job title to vice president, which sounds very grand, I did notice a huge uptick in the number of business development emails, in-mails. Nobody's got my mobile number, so I don't get any phone calls. But like the written word, short of a postcard or a letter, which actually might call, I would read that. It's extraordinary. And as a sales enablement person, you know, obviously I'm of two minds about that, because on the one hand, I'm just like encouraging a legion of sellers to drive activity and to do their outreach and to try to generate interest and etc. And then on the other hand, I'm just like, shut it down, like not interested, eliminate this noise. I'm just deleting stuff left and right. So it's a kind of privileged and interesting position to think, as a buyer, and sales enablement people buy stuff just like marketing people, just like IT people, like they're just one department in a business that is responsible for deliverables and sometimes needs to buy products or services in support of that. You know, it does make me stop to think, well, what does get me to stop and look at something, or what would make me want to take a call? But I will say, Dan, lately, and probably for the last year, the number of good examples is so few and far between the volume of bad things I see that it just makes me wonder, well, what are our SDRs sending? Or what are people telling these often less experienced sellers to do as this sort of silver bullet of conversion and success? And meanwhile, we're all sitting there being like, somewhere between, are you kidding me? And dude, you got to read this ridiculous email I just got. So
and it's great. Like I ran some cold call training this week, and you know, I posted on LinkedIn. Cold calling isn't dead. Picking up the phone. Somehow, some people have got my mobile phone. There's data people out there. They can find you. They're out there, right? And I don't hide much stuff. But you know, so I do still get phone calls, and I appreciate phone calls. But I start the training of like, well, what makes a bad call? And we all know inherently what a bad call is. We all know what a bad outreach is. And yet we're still doing it. Like, how is that possible? And you know, it's a little bit frustrating. And I think you said there's that paradox, right, of us as enablers and trainers saying, right, we want to make you better. We want to encourage the outreach. You've got to go and do your numbers. But also, it's like, do it for someone else. Don't come to me and do it. Like, go and sell somebody else. And like, I'm always in that battle of like, oh, encourage you. But if it's a good one, like, I think we'll talk about that in a minute. But also, like, then feeling an inherent need to coach and improve every single outreach. And now I'm just getting a bit heartless. I'm like, delete.
Yeah.
So, it's tricky. But some people are doing it well. Some people are doing it not so much.
Yeah. And look, it's tough because a great sales conversation is based on a level of discovery. If you're doing a first outreach, you don't have the opportunity to know what my problems are. If I have a problem, you're trying to understand whether I have a problem or if I'm the right person to talk to. So it's a tough job. And I think, you know, it'll put hair on your chest in a sales career. And we've all been there and actually doing that job. And it's amazing. However, I actually think that especially when times are tough, or we're looking around and saying, well, I see X competitor, this company making a ton of noise, getting a ton of stuff out there. We think it's the race to be the loudest, the race to be the most seen, etc. And yes, there's an old marketing fact that people need to hear or see something 7 times before they're, you know, instigated to take action. And I get that. But are there more value-added ways to get messages to individuals or to help build that brand or make people aware that if they have a problem, you're the guy to go to, or help them be more aware of a latent problem that maybe they didn't realize they have, or that there was a solution out there for. But I think that, and this is probably more coming out of American-based companies that I see international businesses or arms of those businesses adopting this real spray and pray model, which on the one hand, people know for a fact kind of doesn't work, but people are still doing it anyway because I think that they're trying to create order from chaos by saying if we have a 4-to-1 conversion ratio, well, math would say, if I spam 400 people and get 100 responses, that's much more pipeline than spamming 100 people, right, and getting 25 responses. So it's probably more the question to me about, well, should we not maybe think about what would drive better conversion ratios? What approach would be more intelligent rather than just bombarding people at scale so that the more you have coming on the top of the pipeline, the more that's filtering through the bottom. So it's in a way not the seller's
It's tough to argue with the numbers, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do we know what it is that actually does get to people? And I think that where the numbers game is really dangerous for sellers is that if you have a very high number from a KPI perspective in terms of outreach, or you're told, it's a 4-to-1 conversion or 1-to-4 conversion. And so, more you pump out, the more you'll get back. Very old school way of selling. Maybe it has worked. As you said, if the numbers won't lie, well, hell yeah, let's 4X the top of the funnel, 4X the bottom of the funnel. That time, whether you're inputting sequencing, and look, the volume game has been aided so significantly by technology that says, hey, we can pre-program 4X the number of outbound emails you'll get sent in a week. You do the work once, we'll send it 4 times. Brilliant. However, a couple problems with that. The first is that every minute a rep spends either sending or inputting templates or copying templates, they're not actually doing research into understanding who they're reaching out to. Are they reaching out to the right person? What should they say? That takes time. And as you get to know,
it takes time. And it's not easy.
No, but as you get to know an industry, as you get to know a persona type, as you get to know a vertical, whatever your focus is in selling, you could start making better targeted approaches because you kind of generally know what's on people's minds or what's the trends in the marketplace. Yeah. So anybody selling into enablement, for instance, what's going on in the enablement market right now? What are the trends that we're seeing? What's on our minds? Dan, what your team is going through and what my team is going through, you work in finance, I work in tech. We have very different jobs, very different teams, but I guarantee our problems, our challenges, and the things that would help us would be almost identical. And if someone understood that, that's a much better hook to people like you or me at scale. But what investment of time are sales leaders encouraging sellers to put into learning, researching, and understanding versus cutting and pasting certain keywords or hooks or this into templates that someone is telling you is a silver bullet, where guess what? If you're BDing into sales, marketing, or enablement, guess what? We know what's a template. Most of the times we are creating those templates. I know what a sequence looks like, and I know what lazy research looks like because we ourselves are doing the same thing. So it's like almost doubly counterintuitive because 5 years ago, people were like, oh, wow, that was really clever. Now it's like another one of these. So I think that there's probably like a few different trends with ubiquity, numbers. People don't know the right way, that it's like you almost have to pivot the thinking of the whole system. Otherwise, everybody is like using the same playbook and then wondering what they can do to stand out.
It must be really difficult selling to sales enablement training professionals because, like you say, we've seen all of the techniques. It's like, I know you're going to say this next, and if you don't, I'm going to be really disappointed.
I think it's super easy to sell.
People call me up. I'll have salespeople call me up.
Honestly, all people need to do, like sales enablement, we're not like enterprise tech architecture where you're like, need to speak a whole other language. All you need to do is keep track of the trends. So I don't know, a year ago when companies were hiring at scale and our teams were struggling to keep up with best-in-class onboarding programs, right? Or, being able to drive training at scale, or during COVID when all of a sudden everything went from live to digital, that's what we were contending with. Or how do we upskill a workforce to do remote selling where they might have been face to face? Now, where are we? So we're in a time of economic uncertainty. So companies, like I'm sure every seller's company, so whatever your company is going through and whatever your sales enablement team are challenged with, that's exactly what I care about, which is about driving productivity from the existing workforce, which is about demonstrating more ROI, which is having to make a stronger business case, which is focusing on the efficiency of my team. So if you're a seller and you sell to someone that has that job at your company, turn to that person, your IT guy, your marketing person, your sales manager, your enabler, yourself, and say, like, what's keeping you up at night? At least that's intelligence that you can lead with, because the funny thing for anyone selling into enablement, they're usually using the hook, whether it's technology, a product, a service, to say, help your sellers do blah. You're a seller. How powerful a message would it be to say, hey, you know what? If my enablement team was doing blah, or the fact that my enablement team uses Showpad to facilitate all of the content and learning, as a seller, it makes my job so much better and easier. And having come from a company that didn't have this, I can tell you, this is tech salespeople love. Do you want to talk about tech salespeople love? But they don't look inward, or they don't understand what's going on in the marketplace. People are just using cut and paste hooks or some of the worst insights from either LinkedIn or databases or whatever to try to make it sound personal. But it sounds like a robot, like trying to have a small talk conversation at dinner. It's like Dan.
I mean, I'm not good at small talk. But
no, but you ever see someone who's awkward at small talk and they're like, I'm just trying to think, like, so Dan, the sweater you're wearing is a similar color to your walls. Would you like to talk about sales enablement? It's like, just like lead with personalization.
This is
fill in recipe template here,
right? And there's two types of ways of breaking the ice, right? There's the personal one, and that's that. It's like, find something that you have in common with the person. Like maybe you went to the same school, or, you both went on holiday to some random location. And then, the people are scrolling back through your Facebook timelines, your Instagrams, and all of those kind of things. And like,
yes, but there's
good something that we have in common from like 28 years ago.
And Dan, there's really good and relevant things, and there's absolute cringe. So can I give you an example of a terrible one? Okay, and these are live and real, and I will not use names, but I'm gonna read this. Hi, Andrea. Read on your profile that you studied at NYU. Now, let me ask you a quick question. That's leading with my university. Now, there's like a number of ways you could tie that into a hook to be like, I've always dreamed of studying in New York, or I'm also from New York, or my mom went to NYU, or make something up. How would I know?
Yeah. Hi,
Andrea, read on your profile you studied at NYU. I read Lady Gaga also went there. That's really impressive.
Okay. Yeah.
Pivoting.
I'm trying to figure out where this is going. You know what you're trying to think? Like, what's next? This is
like
brilliant.
So whatever that like structure is, like, when you were a kid and you were taught to write in like a school essay, statement, fact. This is like the template flow of insert random personalization from LinkedIn profile here. I mean, at least this person did a bit of research.
Celebrity name here.
Andrea, I was insert name from profile using automated template there. I was researching your company, doesn't matter what my company's name is, and identified you as possibly the right person to speak with about your subscription process, particularly its automation.
Wait, what happened to Gaga? Like where?
No, that was over. That section of the template is done now. Now we're into connecting the dots between the insight you have of the person and the fact that they might be the right person to talk to about said topic. So now we're into like part 2 of your automated template. Now part 3 is why their company should be awesome. We fully automate subscription cycles from sales to billing and provisioning, designing smart, agile, and effective customer journey. Can we chat next week so I can share more information? Best, this person.
Oh, wow.
So not only did I not respond to it, I'm reading this out loud on a podcast of like why everyone hates getting these, basically. And
it makes me angry. Like that. There's a reaction. Like every muscle in my body is tensing, and I want to break something right now because, for so many reasons.
Exactly.
I want to know what happened. Like, were you in the same class as Gaga? Is that? Is that what you're trying to say?
No. It's one thing to be like, hey, I see that you and Barack Obama, presented together on the World Economic Forum panel. I heard what you had to say about, climate change and the economy, and it was really riveting. We also work with carbon neutral, blah, blah, blah. Now that's an interesting tie.
Right. It's that link, right? Exactly. It's the tie in. And this is the thing, like you can use personal ones as long as you can find a way to bridge it. So if they said that you studied subscription models or some form of business models, our business model is this, and I'd love to talk to you about it.
Or like we know often sales enablement, I've seen your impressive, start with a compliment. I've seen your impressive trajectory in enablement, or I see you're newer to the enablement space, or whatever's out there. And as a LinkedIn former employee, I'd say my LinkedIn's pretty comprehensive. So I've done podcasts, I've published stuff, I've presented at things, I've made my companies known. So I'm totally cool with you cherry picking stuff that I have voluntarily put in the public domain. I would be creepy if they were like, I see you and your husband went to see the Northern Lights over Christmas. Now that's on my Instagram, like not cool. Yeah. So keep it professional. But if I've put put it out there, I can't then be resentful that it's being used, but use it in a way.
And you're not shy in sharing your opinion. You're not. I know you. You'll happily say what you think, and your opinion is out there for public consumption.
Yeah, and even if it's not,
a strong opinion,
there might be information to be like, I see you joined Showpad about 8 months ago. It's a late congratulations, but I hope you're settling in well to the new role. And by now, I'm sure you have a sense of the business priorities. And in our experience, enablers in their first year often realize that sales people are overwhelmed by a tech stack. Our company specializes in an all-in-one solution, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, even if I'm not looking for that, the communication makes sense. It's not that very...
It's that linkage.
And I think a lot of the tech providers and a lot of the quote thought leaders out there are telling salespeople, follow this structure. And there's a really good technique that I remember from value selling in my older days called Basho. Why you, why now?
Oh, yeah, I remember Basho. Yeah,
remember? And and the great hook, which I'll save for later in our podcast so the listeners play this one all the way through, is a very clever way to close for next steps. But I think that the challenge with all of this highly automated, highly scaled spamorama is that the template, the structure is so, it's almost like, a big box IKEA, like, follow these instructions, hit your target, is that everything sounds the same and everything is bad in the same ways. And the trouble is that nobody kind of says, well, this is what it should be. This is a good one, but I'm saying it just requires you to slow down and personalize it, which is completely anathema to the instructions a lot of sellers get, which is ambitious targets, volume, faster, more, but it's a trade-off of time. And I would rather somebody do any research. Can I read you another one? This is particularly terrible, and I'd love to
do it.
I'd love for you to tell me what's wrong with this, Dan. I told you what was wrong with the previous one. I'm just going to read.
I feel like I need to take a sit down or breather for this one, but go on. We're warming up now.
I'm just going to read you the first paragraph, and you're going to tell me what's wrong with this.
Okay.
Andrea had to get in touch when I saw.
Wait. They didn't do a hi or hey or anything like that.
Okay, so here's the thing, and maybe it's because I live in the UK and it's very, very dependent culturally don't say hey unless we're mates. Hey, Andrea.
I know.
I'm like, ugh. So I don't mind. Andrea, had to get in touch when I saw that you are the enablement vice president revenue of Showpad, which, by the way, there's brackets in this, so I know it's a template, but typos aside.
Copy and paste from LinkedIn template. Yeah.
Andrea, had to get in touch when I saw that you are the enablement vice president revenue of Showpad and the responsibility for the open position of financial accountant. We frequently hear that the gap between CRMs and ERPs are solved through manipulation of data in Excel. So because the word revenue is in my job title, I get 50% of the outbound reaches I get are for people trying to sell me accounting things. Because they are obviously scraping LinkedIn or a database for keywords such as revenue. Yeah. And then they are, even though my role says vice president, revenue enablement, maybe people don't know what that means if they're not in sales or sales enablement. That's cool. But then they're saying, I saw from your profile, or like, I can tell that by virtue of the fact that they're equating the word revenue in my job title to I work in the finance team, that this is spam. So not only am I not the right person to reach out to, I would never in a million years pass this person on to our finance team because this is ridiculous.
No, exactly. And just it's tiny things like that, like the lack of punctuation or the clear copy and paste of the job title. I asked the bit about hi or hey, again, not hi, but whenever they say Dan, I always feel like I'm in trouble. I don't like that. It's like, at least warm me up or something. But it's like I had to reach out because I saw you with this. What do you mean? Like that, the fact that you saw my job title was a compelling event and made you want to go and do something. It's like, no, nobody is compelled by that unless you're being slapped in the office to do more outreach. That's the only reason why.
Exactly. So the why, so they're following the steps, why you, why now, or, insert something personal here. This might be of interest to you because we do blah, blah, blah. Like whatever that magic 3-step silver bullet that you've been taught is, they're almost taking that as the letter of the law and not the spirit of the law, where yes, you need a structure. Yes, you don't want to go through thumb scrolls. Like, yes, this is basically the building blocks of life. Why you, why now? But it has to be grounded in the quality of the stuff you put in it. So, Dan, I've listened to Sales Enabled for the last few months, and I loved the podcast where you talked about outbounding or, name subject area here. As someone who is clearly a thought leader in the space, I thought you might be interested to read this report that Name of My Company Here created about thing you might care about. For context, we do blah, 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 blah. Don't know if you're looking to explore these options in the new year, but if you are, give me a call. If not, hope this has been of value to you. Let's stay in touch on LinkedIn. I just made that up.
But the reason I'm laughing, the reason I'm laughing is because I'm gonna copy that, like, because I'll get the text from this. I'll copy that, and I'm gonna frame it. In 3 months' time, let's see how many salespeople reach out with that exact line.
And look, I have never been a BDR. I've been a salesperson. I've never been a BDR. I worked in recruitment for almost a decade. So cold calling people, being like, you want a job or we have a candidate. It's, I've been there, and it is the cold face. But what I'm saying is an art. It's not science. Like, to me, it's common sense. Like, you know how people in cars act more aggressively than they would walking down the street? So let me ask you a question, Dan. If somebody was walking a little too close behind you, or they were walking in front of you and suddenly stopped short, would you give them the finger or like yell at them very loudly? Probably not. But you're in the car, someone's going too slowly and you're like, move it. Expletive, or like, be like, you such and such, or giving people the finger. Like, you don't do that.
I know.
In the mall.
It's like when people cut you up and they're wrong, and yet they'll blame you. It's
exactly.
Like,
so the point there is that somehow being in this sort of digital, virtual metaverse of communication has led people to forget the general basic principles of like human interaction. So like, how do you do a cold call? The same way you would introduce yourself to someone at a networking event. How would you send an email? The same way you would open a meeting. And that requires work, that requires research and preparation. But my curiosity is, rather than encourage people to send 200 spams instead of 100 spams, what if they sent 100 thoughtful outreaches and had a 60% hit rate? So you ended up with better results, the same amount of time from that rep, which is a binary resource, but it was put to better use. So even if I don't want to buy this now, at least I leave with some memory of your company and its proposition, and that salesperson not being an absolute dimwit. I'm not laughing about them on a podcast. And I feel bad for these people, but this is what happens when your buyers or prospects get this stuff. And, you know,
don't feel bad. The answer is out there, right? The answer is out there. These, you know, BDRs, and
it's out there.
BDR is one of the toughest jobs, right? But go and study, go and think. And you know, I got one. I posted at the beginning of, like, on the first day back at work, my kettle broke, and I was like freaking out because me without caffeine is not healthy for anybody. And I got an email like said, I hope you got your kettle fixed. I'm like, that's a good one. And then, you know, actually the rest of the email is pretty good. I won't read it because you figure out who it is. So I'd be keen to learn a little bit more about you and your role, worth a chat. I'll even throw a coffee or a caffeine voucher if we're doing a remote meeting. I'm like, yes, that's good connection, right? And here's the difference. And this is the thing about BDRs, and you talked about spray and pray. You know, I've been a salesperson. I had to do all my own outreach, and you kind of go through that and like picking up the phone, get told to go away and have a nice day.
Where you could put your,
none of those words,
your value proposition,
right. But what would happen is when you do it well is a snowball effect, right? All outreach is a snowball effect, and now this email is in my inbox, right? And I haven't deleted it. And I'm not going to delete it yet. And I don't know if I'm going to outreach. But at some point, if I need that, it's there, right? And this is the thing about outreach is don't think about that email. Think about the relationship. Think about how can we, you know, and this is about targeting a little bit better. So, you know, Andrea, if I'm reaching out to you, maybe I've got, you know, 7 points of contact, not in a pipeline like just canned, but actually because I really want to like get some time with you and understand what's going on with you. So I'm going to build that relationship over time. I love the book Permission Marketing by Seth Godin, right? And Seth talks about a couple of things. He talks about attention. He talks about attention being the commodity, and then not selling, but building a relationship. And one of the questions I've got, and this is one of my weird thoughts, is I think Tinder has a lot to do with this, right? Because back in the day,
okay, I'm with you.
I'll try and correlate this.
Talk about a good cold outreach.
But back in the day, back in the day, you had to go and talk to people and do that whole thing, and now it's just swipe right. I'm going to go swipe right. It's just swipe right, and you know, then you're narrowing down, and then you try the same old thing. And so the art of the art of communication and just conversation is being taken away from us, being replaced by tech in all sorts of scenarios, not just sales, but, you know, personal life, and all those things. And so we forget how to actually start talking to people.
You're 100% right. And I'm going to place a bet, Dan, that both you and I are a little on the wrong side of the age bracket to have like been a super active Tinder user in our single days. However, from friends of mine that I've seen it, it's absolutely right. So if you were at a bar, even if you were at a singles event, you would never be able to meet, quote unquote, that many people. Now all you do is thumb scroll right. You can get through hundreds of cruisings a day. Then you figure out whatever your chat up line is, whatever your outbound is, like, hey, beautiful, or hey, Dan, you know, do fries come with that shake of yours, or whatever your line is that actually gets the most hits. And you're just going to use that line over and over. And of course, on the other side of things, we as consumers, it's Amazon, it's Netflix, it's Chat GPT, it's all of this that has created, what, as a buyer or a human of anything, this expectation for hyper personalization. There was a time, once upon a time, that I would have been deeply impressed that somebody knew I went to NYU. Now that's table stakes, because I'm like, dude, if you are not checking out my LinkedIn profile before emailing, in-mailing, or picking up the phone, you haven't even done your job. Like, the bar that we have for what we consider acceptable attention getting is so much higher that that's what sellers need to do to respond. Not about using the accessibility of data and the ubiquity of information to go wider. I expect hyper personalization in a sale. Every customer does. This is where we are in a selling environment. So personalize it, connect the dots. These are just core sales skills that I actually think we have gotten worse at because technology keeps promising ease and accessibility and swipe right. And in one thumb scroll, without having to have a 5-minute conversation, you know how tall someone is, what they do for a living, what they're interested in, what they're looking for, what they kind of look like in a bathing suit. Like, think about all the discovery you've done on Tinder before you're even sending your chat up line. Now, I think that you make a great point, Dan, that, you know, B2B selling especially needs to consider the consumer behaviors and what technology has both enabled and almost like pre-programmed our minds to expect. So how do sellers meet buyers where they are? Like, in a way, we all know this intrinsically because we've all been on Tinder or Amazon or Google, right? Like, whatever experience you've had as a human being, like, that is what you're trying to do, is to connect to another human being. And to the point you make, and Seth Godin makes, a cold outreach at the end of the day is you asking permission for that discovery. So what have you done? It's
not even asking permission for discovery. It's permission to connect as two humans.
Exactly. And in a sales cycle, in an ideal world, to say, can I get 10 minutes of your time to learn more about your challenges or give you our sales pitch? You're asking for my time. You're asking for permission to talk to me more. Yeah. And even as much as I might like you as a person, you know, I'm still going to be like, well, I'm not buying financial software, so no. But the question is this. You want to make that personal connection and make it relevant, but then what have you actually done to earn the right to ask? To ask me for anything.
Yep.
So just because I'm having a business problem that your company can theoretically solve, what have you done for me whereby you have earned the right for me to say, I'd love to give you something, which is 10 minutes of my time, which I guarantee I could definitely be spending.
The 100 other people.
Exactly. Asking for my time.
Other people, and they're trying to do the same thing. Yeah.
Or me just to do my day job. So what is going to get me to put 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes in my calendar to talk to you about something? If all you did is just be like, that'd be like going up to you on the street, Dan, and be like, hey, sir, can I have 5 pounds? You know, like,
this is creepy.
It's weird. That's kind of what getting one of these things is like, hey, Dan, or say, excuse me, sir, I see you are a man with a sweater and a small beard. Can I have 5 pounds? Like, so it's more like,
yeah,
exactly. So whether it's 5 pounds, whether it's 5 minutes, you know, you're asking for a commodity, which is often someone's time, which is information. It's pass me on to the right person. So a tip I have, and I've got a couple of decent examples here, is in that cold outreach, like recommendation 1, lead with personalization, but somehow connect the dots in a human way. Don't feel it.
Please. Just bridge. Just go from here to here.
Just bridge it somehow. Just bridge it somehow. And if you don't know anything personal, what do you know about the person who you just spoke to, or the person at your company doing that same job or with those same challenges? Show me something that you know anything.
Exactly.
The second is give me something of value first. So companies, whatever you're selling, your marketing teams and sales teams are churning out thought leadership, white papers, reports, so much. Why are you holding that back? So a great example here. And again, the downside of this is they completely misread my job title, and this has nothing to do with what I actually do. But the principle of adding value is here. Hi, Andrea. As you work in the technology, information, and internet industry as a vice president revenue enablement, robot, data scrape, fine. I thought you might be interested in our CO2 emissions tech cheat sheet. I'm not.
I definitely would.
What if this was a state of the enablement world, right? Cheat sheet or, top 10 tips for sellers. So let's assume the topic was of interest and the email was better crafted.
Oh, okay.
Based on the data we have analyzed across hundreds of tech businesses, we provide 3 actionable insights into how tech companies can reduce carbon emissions and reach net zero faster. I'd read that if that was the topic I was.
Yeah, I know.
Now, this person then ends this message by saying, I trust this will be of interest, doesn't close for next steps or ask me for anything. So that's one way to do it.
So close.
That's one way to do it.
Leave the intrigue there. It's like fishing.
Just your first thing, just be like, not asking you for a thing, just putting something to you.
Yeah.
Might be of interest. I'm happy to offer value for nothing. Maybe they'll follow up and say, how did you find the report?
Yeah.
This is what we do. Would you like to talk? Really cool tactic. A bit of a slower burn.
Yeah.
But all she would have to say at the end would have been, once you read the report, it'd be great to get your thoughts. And, what is the best way to get 15 minutes on your calendar to discuss some of your emissions challenges?
And maybe they got a branch because, you can tell people reading content. So like, oh, you didn't read the content, so here's my thoughts. Or here, you read the content, I saw you spent some time on this page. Love to spend 15 minutes. Like, that'd be cool. I'd be interested to see where
but I'm just saying, like, it's something that stands out. Again, totally misread the room. I'm interested in saving the planet, but I'm not personally responsible for my company's carbon emission strategy. But this other one from another company. Hi, Andrea. Just a year ago, hiring was soaring. Now we're seeing hiring slow globally, according to the latest LinkedIn data. To help you navigate the changing market, we spoke with 11 talent leaders from around the world to understand how they're adapting their hiring strategies and preparing their teams for the year ahead. Check out the Hiring in 2023 report today. Best wishes. Again, no next steps. I mean, it's half interesting to me because I'm a hiring manager. But again, if they nail the who I am to what they're selling, like if I was a key persona, if that was, about sales enablement or sales strategy, I'd be all over it.
Yeah. One of the topics we cover is enablement of our new hires. Like, I think you find page 7 really interesting. Check it out.
Exactly.
I'm in.
So I think that it's less, there's gaps here, but just the way the communication is really good. Yeah. And it doesn't lead with some fake, I see you went to NYU with Lady Gaga. It's just hyper relevant to me and offering me something that even if, again, I'm not. So first of all, research to ensure that whoever you're outbounding to is actually interested or would be relevant for the thing you are selling. So stop sending me finance and CO2 emissions and hiring stuff. If you're not sure what my job title means, like look at my profile. Like my profile is my LinkedIn profile makes it pretty damn obvious. I do sales enablement, even though that's not my job title. Second thing is if you're going to personalize, connect the personalization to the so what about it, because that old school template is, Dan, nice sweater. Anyway, we blah, blah, blah. It's super awkward and you would never do it at a party. You would never do it at a job interview. Don't do it on email. And then the third is just lead with something of value, because that to me is much more interesting than you saying that you know where I went to college, unless there's a point to that. But actually cut through that. I don't care if you know where I went to college. What I care about is that you send me the top 5 trends in selling or modern selling or sales enablement or workforce productivity, because you know that those are the kind of questions and challenges that are on my mind, and you have added value to me without necessarily asking for anything. But again, a great, powerful final hook is, what is the best way to get 15 minutes in your calendar to discuss? Don't ask me next Thursday. Don't be like, how's next week? Again,
I've got time on my calendar on such and such date.
Again, that work.
The 80s again.
You know what? Whoever these people are on LinkedIn being like, here's the playbook, like that worked 10 years ago. But we are in a different space now. So a soft close, add the value, follow up, do your research. I think what we need are some courageous sales leaders to take a punt to say, you know what, let's try this and see, rather than, but we also have to.
And I'm sure there are some good ones out there.
Well, because you're going to need to take a leap of faith, because you're not going to hit your 200 person outreach KPI that month. So that's why I'm saying that, like, the reason to your first question of like, why are we kind of feeling stuck in the mud? Everyone knows this sucks, but we still do it, is because someone needs to take a leap, prove the concept, and maybe this will work, maybe it won't work, but at least give it a go. And then everybody else will follow. And then guess what? This is going to then become table stakes, and we'll have to have this conversation in 5 years and be like, okay, what's the new outreach strategy? It's probably going to be robots, but like, you know, or drones, or maybe you're just going to go back to sending a box of donuts and a postcard. Which, guess what?
All right.
At this point, if somebody sent me a box of donuts and a postcard, I would 100% give them a call. So,
definitely, don't send me donuts. So, like I said, I'm trying to be good, and I do like the sweater is the thing, right? Apparently, the sweater gets lots going on. I'm wearing a cable knit sweater because it's cold outside. Like, that's what you do in winter.
Yeah,
I'm rocking it.
And that's when you have a relevant thing. Be like, Dan, great sweater.
Yeah.
Like, hasn't it been a particularly cold winter here? We offer the most impactful solar heating. So if you're struggling with, with the chill, and you don't want to have to wear that great sweater inside, let's talk. What's the best way to get 15? Connect the dots.
So here's what I think after this podcast, I'm going to get a whole bunch of people who listen to the podcast and then use that as the intro. And I'm also going to get loads of outreach from heating engineers.
It's not the heaviest sweater, guys. Don't worry.
Exactly. But now I am feeling particularly warm. I don't know if it's the embarrassment factor or just the focus on going on the sweater. But anyway, I'd say here's my thing. And I think if we look at the psychology, there's a couple of things. So number one, rapport people understand really badly, and people always talk about matching and mirroring. It's not about matching and mirroring. That's so superficial. And what we want to do is get, if you look at neurological levels model, we want to get higher on that and get to like values alignment. Values alignment is the terminator of rapport. Like, it's just the best level, because if me and you have got motivation and drivers in common, and I can find a way to close the gap on those, now we're interested. If we're both wearing sweaters, next time you come on the show, you should wear a sweater. I'm just saying.
No, I've got one over here.
If we've got something in common, all right, next time.
Well, next time. But here's the thing.
But if we've got something in common, we can talk about that.
Yeah, but even if we were both wearing sweaters, to your point about like neurological hierarchy. So be like that again. This is like people who don't know how to look, making small talk in a social engagement with strangers is tough. I'm just saying this is also why a lot of people don't go into sales. So if you are someone that finds it super weird striking up a conversation with a total stranger, maybe being a BDR is not your best line of work. Be an accountant, because that part of the art of selling is being able to build rapport and figure it out really fast and say, okay, Dan, how do I not waste your time? How do I earn the right to influence you and take you on a journey at whatever stage? So me being like, quick cues, Dan, we are both wearing sweaters. I mean, let's be honest. What else do we have in common? Yeah. We both have hair. We're both human. We both live in a house with lights. We both have teeth, right? Now, we're both sales enablement professionals. We both live in the UK. All of a sudden, I just listed a ton of stuff that we both have microphones. We're both on this podcast. So if I gave you those 10 things that we officially, objectively, a computer could identify that we, quote, have in common, if we were to list the hierarchy of who cares, where would you put at the top and where would you put at the bottom? The fact that we're both wearing sweaters or have microphones or lights, at the bottom. The fact that we both have teeth, irrelevant. The fact that we are in the same line of work and have done this podcast together, all right, well, now we're cooking. Now we've got something to potentially talk about.
Yeah.
So it's exactly. I think that's the other piece with that personalization is it's not just about proving you glanced at a profile or that whatever incredible sales tech you're using that's giving you these.
I've done my research. Tick.
But like the point is that the buyer or the prospect can feel that. So it's almost like don't do your research. Just send me something that might be valuable. Like, don't waste time sending me like nonsense. Like, they know Lady Gaga went to my college, because it has nothing to do with anything.
See if there's any class photos of you two in the same thing.
Totally. Like, I'm just saying it's actually worse to do that kind of research that has no point, because that's unfortunately a waste of that rep's time, where they saw NYU on my profile, Googled who went to NYU. In that 30 seconds, they could have done something far more productive, like send me a research report that their marketing team probably spent 3 months creating to help these salespeople add value to customers and prospects. So it's like, salespeople are also in control of their time. Whatever your targets or whatever the approach, it's like, would you say this at a cocktail party, or what would your opening line be in real life, not on Tinder, as you say? Because again, much like being in a car, whether you're personal or professional in this virtual online space, people don't act like people anymore. But yet at the same time, to your point, it just comes back to human psychology.
Yeah, exactly. And the other point in psychology, and this is the other thing, is when everything is noise, it's the different. I'm going to use Seth Godin again, purple cow, but it's a pattern interrupt, right? If people are expecting something, do the opposite. And that's what's going to break through. And I think the opposite of canned, templated, predictable, cheesy outreach is being human. I think it is.
It really is.
And like I said, it's.
And it will make people feel better about it. I'll give you the one absolute final example to a guy that I did respond to. Wasn't keen to buy anything. This is his first sales job. He was an intern. He didn't even get the like premium stuff to send me an actual message. It was just a LinkedIn request. And again, I get a lot. I hardly will connect to a stranger with no context. The sweet guy goes, "Hey, Andrea, I'd like to add you to my professional network here on LinkedIn and perhaps ask you a few more development questions from time to time." Again, no pressure either way. So I accepted his request. I don't know, it was maybe a moment of charity. And the minute I said yes, he responded, "Hi again, Andrea. Really appreciate you accepting my LinkedIn request. I enjoyed seeing your performing arts education and experience. My wife loves theater and I have grown to love it, even made an A in my college theater class. It's really cool to see that you were an actress before you started your sales journey. Can you talk more about the transition, not only moving industries, but also your home base? I'm building my career in sales and I'd welcome any advice." So the reason I'm highlighting that,
fuzzies, look at that.
Right? Doesn't that make, and I know he's just, but hey, look, 10 minutes to ask, to talk to a young professional about their career, or 10 minutes to talk about my professional challenges. Again, it's the permission to ask for that time, for that favor, for anything. But the reason this stood out to me is that is such amazing personalization.
Yeah.
He connected the dots between what he saw and his hook and what he wanted to ask about, which for him was more personal than business, but principles exactly the same. But again, rather than just highlighting the fact that I went to NYU and did theater and so did Lady Gaga, anyway, turn the page, it had a pull. And this was like a 22-year-old recent graduate trying to like figure out how to get into sales. Not somebody who's had 5 years of someone being like, this is the magic bullet. So that's why I'm saying, like, being great at this doesn't even have to do with experience. I almost guarantee he didn't say, here's 5 templates you can use. Actually, for someone, it's almost weird, like to your human factor, this person hasn't had the jadedness and the pre-programming of like these sequences and this template and this way and all these things.
Yeah.
This is just a 22-year-old kid having a human moment, trying to hustle a little bit, and spoke to me in the virtual space just the way I'm sure if I had met him at a conference, he might start a conversation. And talk about power distance, it's like we are 20-year age difference and he's just putting himself out there, that's really brave. And it's personal. So it's like a rejection would cut real deep. So I'm just saying, like, if this person can do this, just by thinking about how would I approach this as a human being and what does anything have to do with anything else? Why have I targeted this person? What have I learned from my research that indicates they would be a good person to talk to about this? And what do I want from them? Like, that's all an outreach is. So if this person can do it, like, sellers everywhere should. And I think sales leaders who might be listening to this, like, this is what buyers want. And I would fall off my chair if you replaced me with any of your ICPs or key personas, anyone you've ever sold to. Like, great sales leaders need to listen to their customers, listen to their prospects. So, like, stop the old behavior. Just try being more human. We say in an age of automation and selling technology. So as long as you still have people selling to people, you got to cut through the noise.
And that's we've got to remember that. And the way through the noise is personal. Like, that's it. Just reach out to the human. And if you have contact, that's it, and add value.
What did Einstein say? Like, if I had a problem to solve, I'd probably spend my first, 90% of that time asking questions. Like, if you have an outreach target to meet, you should spend at least 50% of that time you spend prospecting, doing research and personalizing those outreaches. Whether you automate them, whether you send some donuts, whatever, that's less important than what's in it. Because wouldn't it be amazing to have a situation where you're only having to send 10 emails a month because you get 10 out of 10?
Yeah.
So if your target
and if the others don't come back, they're going to come back later because you've added value, and it might not be the right time now, but you haven't turned them off by giving them some rubbish.
Yeah. And if you're leading a business and listening to this and thinking about that, it's not just about that salesperson. It's about that ick you get when you then think about that company or indeed the industry as a whole. So when I worked in recruitment for a long time, I got people be like, oh, you worked in recruitment, haha, and I'm like, well, I think that's a really noble job. You're helping find people work. Why do people sometimes blanch at recruiters? Well, it's because they're usually doing slimy outreach, which doesn't just give them a bad name, it kind of ruining the pot for everybody.
Yeah.
So, the brand, your BDRs or your AEs or sometimes your newest, greenest salespeople are actually your first brand ambassador of your company. So if you're not investing in them and helping them do this with class, with the kind of finesse and the kind of message you would be proud for your CEO to see, then what are you doing leading these people?
Andrea, this has been awesome. Like, I'm scribbling notes down. I'm going to be listening back to this. There's so many gems in this. And, I think, if you're an SDR or BDR, then hopefully this has given you some ideas to go back and personalize your content, add more value. Think about how you're doing it. Take the templates, but use the template. Templates are good as long as you use them properly. Don't shortcut it. Use tech to add value to what you're doing and expand upon it, not replace the work and not replace the salesmanship or salespersonship. And if you're a sales leader, challenge that. Yes, we want some volume, but you've got to identify your key personas and really reach out to them on an individual level, not just a pre-can level. So, Andrea, I think we're going to have some amazing impact with this session. I also think, both of us are going to subject ourselves to a lot more outreach as a result, but the quality is going to be amazing.
I'll tell you
That's
what,
the good thing. The
Dan,
quality of every piece of outreach is going to be amazing.
Let's commit to this today for any listener that tries to business develop us. I can't say we're going to buy anything. I have no idea what you're selling and I have no idea what we're buying, but if it's good, if your outreach was good, even if we're not interested or even if we're not the right person, whatever, Dan, why don't we commit right now that we will at least send that person a response to acknowledge what was good and offer any tips that might help. So You've got two cold prospects here.
And to the rest, the ones that are terrible, we send a link to this podcast and we say, well, listen to this and try again.
Absolutely. No, okay. It's a tough world out there, and we want you guys to be successful. Yeah. So
we do. This is why we're doing it, right? And yeah, it's tongue in cheek, and yeah, you use frustration to teach a good lesson. So I think we've done some good stuff. Andrea, in case people can't find you, can they find you on LinkedIn? Where are you most active in terms of communications?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn, great place. Happy to connect, happy to chat, always happy to hear some of the great work and ideas that others have to say as well. So LinkedIn is probably the best, and the surname is with 2 B's and 1 T. So Abbate, and I will look forward to keeping the conversation going, Dan. Thank you so much for having me today.
You know what I think, Ron? I think that was a sales call. Good job, buddy.
So you're going to buy a subscription?
No, I already get the Times.
Bye-bye.